So if you would get your comprehension page ready, I know you've already done it, but we're going to go over it together so you can make corrections and make sure you have page numbers down. And we're going to read together. So get your book ready and you can read with me. I didn't see any think notes in the comment section, but you may have had some or forgotten to put some, but we'll see as we go along. Okay, chapter 1 is called Once Upon a Time. Now, I didn't find my book, but I did get it on my device here, my iPad. So I'm going to read to you from here as we go along. So you'll see me keep looking down because I have my iPad on my lap. Okay. The first thing you should know about me is that my name is Alvin Ho. I'm afraid of many things: elevators, tunnels, bridges, airplanes, thunder, substitute teachers, kimchi, wasabi, the dark, heights, and scary movies, scary dreams, shots, and school. So as I'm reading through this, I'm thinking you must have had a think note for kimchi and wasabi. Okay. If you did you go to the glossary in the back of the book? Because there is a glossary and it tells us what those things are. So I'm going to go to my glossary right now because I bookmarked it and I could go back there. So I know that kimchi, because I don't know these things off the top of my head, is pickled cabbage that explodes in your throat and makes you cry. I don't know if I'd want to eat that. And wasabi, and maybe some of you have seen it. I don't know if you've ever tried it. It can be a little powerful. It's a green paste made from horseradish that you eat with sushi. It explodes inside your nose and makes you cry. So I don't know if these things are things that we really want. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. If there were no school, my troubles would blast away. Just like that. I would dig holes all day. I would play catch with my gung gung. Now, did you have a think note for gung gung, or did you look it up in the glossary? Because that's a grandparent. I would watch cooking shows. I would keep an eye on things. It would be fantastic. The second thing you should know about me is that even though I am afraid of many things, I am not afraid of anything that explodes. I love explosions. I was practically born with gunpowder in my blood. This is on account of I live in Concord, Massachusetts, which is hard to spell, but where there were explosions all over the place when the American Revolutionary War started, way before I was born. The third thing you should know about me is that I have a dog named Lucy, and a brother named Calvin, and a sister named Annabelle, who messes with my sticks and toys, eats my food, drinks my chocolate milk, and gets in my way. I am not as big as Calvin, but I am bigger than Annabelle, who isn't a baby anymore, but doesn't go to school yet. I am sort of nearly almost medium. When I stand on tiptoe and stretch at the same time, I am finally almost visible in my class picture. So the picture shows Calvin and Lucy and Annabelle. The fourth thing you should know about me is that I love Plastic Man, Wonder Woman, the Green Lantern, Concrete Man, Aquaman, King Henry V, the V is a Roman numeral that stands for 5, and all the superheroes in the world. I know them from reading with my dad every night while my mom runs on the treadmill like a hamster on a wheel. My dad is a great reader for his age, which could be 50 or 100. It's hard to tell. He wears reading glasses and always puts one arm around me and his other arm around Annabelle and Calvin for support, on account of when you get to be that old, it's hard to do anything by yourself. The fifth thing you should know about me is that once upon a time, before I went to school, I was a superhero. I was Firecracker Man. I ran around our house full speed ahead, screaming at the top of my lungs while beating on a garbage can lid. I was as noisy as Firecracker on Chinese New Year. I was as noisy as a firecracker on Chinese New Year. Remember, we talked about that way back in January. But now I am Firecracker Man only on the weekends and holidays. There's just no time for it. Being a superhero is hard work. You have to save the world, but going to school is even harder. You have to save yourself. Most days I can hardly even make it to the school bus. And when I arrive at school, I can't think, I can't read, I can't smile, I can't sing, I can't scream, I can't even talk. The sixth thing you should know about me is that I have never spoken a word in school. Even when I try with all my might, I always manage to say nothing at all. My voice works at home. It works in the car. It even works on the school bus. But as soon as I get to school, I am as silent as a side of beef. You are like a piece of frozen sausage falling off the truck, my brother Calvin. You are like a piece of frozen sausage fallen off the truck, my brother Calvin likes to say. It is true. I am something like that. No one really knows why I lose my voice at school, since I come from a long line of farmer warriors who haven't had a scaredy bone in their bodies since 714 AD. In China, my ancient grandpas and grandmas and aunts and uncles fought off leopards and tigers in their gardens the way Calvin and Annabelle and I fight off mosquitoes at Walden Pond. They weren't afraid of anything. I am afraid of everything. So I know this family is Chinese because his ancestors, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, and uncles, are from China. So that makes me know that he is Chinese. Chapter 2, getting ready. Gulp, getting ready for school. Do you feel like that way when you go to school? I hope not. It was the last day of summer vacation, and Calvin and I were in our room getting ready for the first day of school. He was going into the 4th grade, and I was heading into 2nd. Calvin was on the computer, and I was sitting on my bed going over my PDK, Personal Disaster Kit. When you're afraid of everything, it's very important to carry a PDK. It's like a PFD, a personal flotation device, only heavier and with more parts. A PDK begins with the right box. It must not be too big like a shoebox or too small like a Band-Aid tin. A handle on it is good, but a lock is bad on account of it will keep you out when you need to get in. I use a waterproof fly box with compartments, which is just perfect. So a fly box is fly fishermen or fisherwomen use this to store their flies, and they make flies. So when they go fly fishing, this is what they use. They resemble insects. So it has nice little compartments for everything. You can put anything in a PDK, but mostly it should be things that are useful in a disaster, such as a whistle. If I lose my voice, a whistle is very handy. A 3-leaf clover, because I couldn't find a 4-leaf one. Garlic, for fending off vampires and teachers. You won't fend me off with garlic. I love garlic. Dental floss, handy for trapping, wrapping, tying, or hanging things, and it's out of Annabelle's reach. Band-Aids, a magnifying glass for general curiosity, but can also be used to start a fire. A mirror for sending signals in case you can't start a fire. A bandana for preventing smoke inhalation in case you start the above fire, but can also be used as a sling or a tourniquet. Okay, and maybe you had a think note for sling or tourniquet. Sling is something to hold a bone in place. Okay, or to hold something in place, so you have a sling on it. Your arm might have a sling if you have a hurt arm. Or a tourniquet is something you wrap around tightly to stop bleeding. Okay, if you're in an emergency situation, you might tie a bandana around you to stop something from bleeding. A scary mask for keeping girls away. Escape routes. The problem with PDKs, as everyone knows, is that they need to be updated every year on account of you never know what you'll need in the next grade. Now that I could read and write without help, I was adding something I'd needed for a long time: emergency plans. I read them out aloud to Calvin. Okay, so here's his emergency plans. How to survive a fire in the school cafeteria. 1, lie down. The freshest air is near the floor. That's true. 2, crawl away from the flames. And 3, run. And how to meet your new teacher. Put on a scary mask, rub on garlic, and stay back 100 feet. I'm glad none of you did that with me. And how to survive show and tell. Show something spectacular, hold it high, turn it around, listen to the oohs and ahs, and take a bow. When I finished reading, I was very impressed with my plans, but Calvin was not. That's stupid, he said. Calvin is not supposed to use the S word. It is bad. Now, we're not supposed to use it either, but I know you're mature enough to hear it in a story and not repeat it just because you heard it in a story. You can't say that, I said. Okay, it's dumb, said Calvin. You're supposed to look your teacher in the eye, shake her hand, and smile. But that's harder than putting on a scary mask, I said. I am not too good at anything ever since I started school, but Calvin is good at everything. He knows his multiplication tables mostly. He has fantastic ideas for science projects. Most days he can finish his homework without falling asleep. And someday he will know something about everything because he is reading the entire encyclopedia online. Calvin, I said, you're going to be the smartest person in the world. That's the whole idea, said Calvin, still reading. He needed to read pretty fast to give himself a jump start on the 4th grade, which is when you have to speed read to get yourself ready for middle school. He was up to the letter D. Did you know that deer sleep only 5 minutes a day, Calvin said. No, I said. Calvin? Calvin ignored me and continued reading. The elephant is the only mammal that can't jump, he said. Calvin was right. I've seen an elephant fly in a movie, but I've never seen one jump. I need your help to finish my PDK, I said. I've already helped you, Calvin sighed. He did not look up. I need more help, I said. I need emergency plans for making friends. None of the boys at school will play with me. Excuse me. That's because you're weird, said Calvin. I'm not weird, I said. I have so-so performance anxiety disorder. It is true, I see a therapist for it. That's weird, said Calvin. He skipped ahead to S. You're weird, I said. Did you know that the author William Shakespeare invented more than 1,700 words, including assassination and bump? I shook my head. Stewardesses is the longest word you can type with only the left hand, said Calvin. Growled. Calvin stopped. Okay, he said. The first step in making friends is don't talk so much. You need to be quiet. That is the first rule of being a good friend. Oh, I blinked, but I can't talk in school, I cried. That's the problem. Calvin glared at me. Maybe if you didn't use up all your words at home, you'd have some to use at school, he said. So I'm making an inference now that Alvin must do a lot of talking at home. And right now he's doing a lot of talking and annoying his brother. Okay, he said. If I tell you, will you stop bothering me? Okay, I agreed. Ready? Asked Calvin. You'd better write fast. So I did. I read it twice and then I read it again. Okay. And so here's the rules for making friends. Number 1, say hello. Number 2, just say hello. Number 3, trade baseball cards. 4, trade more baseball cards. 5, just trade baseball cards. It wasn't perfect, but I put it into my PDK and stopped bothering Calvin. Okay, and that's the end of chapter 3. Okay, so now let me share my screen with you so that we can see my annotating tools. Okay, so that we can see the questions we have to answer and hopefully have the page numbers down and we'll be good to go. So who are the main characters of this book so far? Let me just get back to my page. Okay, so the main characters of the book we found on pages 9 and 10, which was in chapter 1. So it starts on page 9. So we found, let me get my text tool, it'll be a little bit easier to do it here with that. Okay. So we found Calvin, who is the brother. Okay, he's a brother in 4th grade. Okay, and then we have Lucy, who is the dog. And we have Annabelle, who is the little sister. Okay, and the brother is in 4th grade. So you may have all these details for your answer and you may not. And it's important to know that we found this on page 9 and 10. Okay, so far this is who we know. And of course, Alvin, he's the main character. So I guess we should write that down there too. Alvin is the main character. Okay, number 2, what are some specific things that Alvin is afraid of? So if you looked on page 8 and 9, there's a whole list of things. You may have written down a few, you may have written down all of them. So elevators, tunnels, bridges, airplanes, thunder, substitute teachers, kimchi, wasabi, the dark, heights, scary movies, scary dreams, shots, and school. That's a lot of things to be afraid of. Number 3, what is a PDK? So if you go to page 14 and 15 in your book, okay, it tells us what a PDK is. So PDK, so this is page 14. So remember, right now you should be correcting. If you don't have page numbers down, you should be writing them down. So PDK on page 14 says it's a personal disaster kit, right? The P stands for personal, the D stands for disaster, and the K stands for kit. And why does Alvin think he needs one? Well, we know that he thinks he needs one because in case anything happens, right? In case an emergency happens, he wants to be prepared. He wants to be prepared for every situation. So everything he has in his PDK, there's a reason for, and all those reasons are listed between page 15 and 16. All right. Then let's go to number 4. What suggestions does Calvin give to Alvin about making friends? So if we go to, let's see, it's in chapter 2. Let me get to the right page here. So the first thing he tells him on page 21 is that you have to be quiet, don't talk so much. But that doesn't really satisfy Alvin because Alvin doesn't talk when he goes to school. He talks everywhere else, but not at school. So if we turn the page to page 22, we find out that the list of things, because it says suggestions, not just one suggestion, but more than one, he has to say hello and trade baseball cards, right? So be quiet, say hello, and trade baseball cards. Those are the suggestions. So we find that on page 21 and 22. All right. I hope you're enjoying the story as much as I am. I really, really just love this story. Okay. All right. So for next time, for Friday, you're going to read chapters 3 and 4 and do the comprehension questions. Let's just quickly read over the comprehension questions. It said, why does Alvin write his name on the autographed baseball? Why does Calvin suggest Alvin hang from a tree? What does Alvin mean when he says he's allergic to school? And who is Flea? So these are questions. I always like to read the questions. So when I'm reading, I say, aha, I remember that. Now I'm supposed to pay attention to that. Okay, so make sure you write your page numbers down where you find your answers, put them on where your questions are, and leave me think notes in the comment section. Okay, happy reading.